Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. We'll get started in just a moment. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to our Town Hall series. My name is Jessica Proud, and I will be moderating today's discussion. Before I turn it over to our host, Chairman Langworthy, I just want to give you a brief overview of the rundown of today's event for those of you who haven't joined us before. So first, you'll be welcomed by Chairman Langworthy, who's going to make a few brief remarks on some breaking news that happened this morning. And then he's going to introduce our very special guests that we have with us today, County Executives Ryan McMahon, Tony Picente, Steve McLaughlin, and Marc Molinaro, who's running just a couple minutes late and will be with us soon. Then in the second part of the event, we're going to turn it over to a Q&A to all of you in the audience. As always, you can ask your question one of two ways. If you would like to be on camera, you can use the raise your hand function to ask your question. And if you prefer not to be on camera, you can simply type it into the Q&A box. So that's raise your hand if you want to be on camera, or you can type it into the Q&A box and it will be read aloud. We'll do our best to get through as many questions as we can throughout the hour that we're together today. And with that, I'll turn it over to our host, Chairman Langworthy. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica, and thank you everyone for joining us today for another installation of the Chairman's video town hall meetings. This has been a very successful series. But before we start today, I have to address some breaking news. It's rocked the New York State Capitol today. Earlier this morning, New York State Attorney General Tish James, who, make no mistake, is a liberal Democrat and someone that was hand-selected by Governor Andrew Cuomo to be the Attorney General of this state. She released the findings of a bombshell investigation that has revealed that Andrew Cuomo engaged in a cover-up of the nursing home deaths and issued a false report, underreporting the number of deaths by 50% or more. This news is not all that surprising that those of us that have been following these facts and have been, putting this out for the last year. But the significance is that the left-wing attorney general, a Democrat, implicated him for his actions. That cannot be understated. And for those of you that joined us last week, hearing from Janice Dean talking about this very situation, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. These findings will have implications across New York State, and they cannot be dismissed as political attacks or someone trying to politicize this situation. Andrew Cuomo was the only governor in America to have a deadly combination of policies that forced COVID-positive patients into nursing homes and prohibited them from testing. He then used his power and his resources of the state government to engage in a cover-up, issuing false reports, false investigations, trying to hide his executive order, and he used the platform of his briefings to lie to New Yorkers. The veil is being lifted, and while this is a good start to getting to the truth, there must be further investigation and ultimately accountability for all of those involved, including Governor Andrew Cuomo himself. He must answer to this, and he cannot escape justice. This is something that is huge that people are talking about across the state right now. Seeing sirens on websites. We're joined today by the purpose of this town hall is to talk about the failures of the vaccine rollout, and we've asked some of our great Republican county executives to join us in that. I want to welcome Ryan McMahon, our Onondaga County executive, Steve McLaughlin, our Rensselaer County executive, as well as Tony Picente, our county executive from Oneida County, and we'll be joined shortly, hopefully, by Marc Molinaro, the Dutchess County executive, and no stranger to anyone watching here today. But, gentlemen, I just want to get your first reactions to the Attorney General's report. It's damning, and it implicates this administration in a very big way. You've all had varying degrees of cooperation with the administration in the COVID response. But, as Governor Cuomo has insisted on having all of the power, the counties have been kicked around quite a bit in my observation in this process. But, Steve, since you're the most shy among us, I thought we'd start with you and give your first initial reactions to Tish James' report.
Well, look how my fellow county executives chuckle at that. It, I've already called a couple minutes ago. The governor should resign. This impeachment should be underway in the legislature. He has lied to the people of New York for close to a year now. One of the things we did here in Rensselaer County was read that evil executive order and defy it. We never accepted a positive COVID transfer, and we tested everybody before they came in the door. Nobody came in if they tested positive. Those were two key steps for us to do to try to protect people's lives, because we recognized immediately how awful that was. And we were proven right, as were my counterparts across the state, proven right that this was a horrible order. So I think this governor's got a lot to answer for, and it's not okay to lie to the people of New York. And trust me, this is not the only, as you know, not the only place he's been lying to us, but this is an egregious assault on the people of New York and those families who've lost loved ones in nursing homes.
Tony Picente, Oneida County Executive.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me the opportunity to join my colleagues today and talk about some of this. Yeah, I think, Steve hit it on the head in one way. I think the other way is for those of us on the ground, those of us on the front lines, which, as I join Ryan and Steve and Marcus, but others across the state, what this report came out with was what we already knew. And we knew that these numbers were high. We knew what was happening in those nursing homes and tried, I know, on the local level to inject ourselves in life-saving measures, because that's what we do. But, we're turned back to say, no, the state's got it, they're going to handle it. And, as numbers came out, we were reporting them every day. We saw what was happening in our own counties and in those numbers, and certainly across the state and in New York City and other areas. It was staggering. And that remains the vulnerable population that we've been dealing with this pandemic, and certainly to cast it aside as it wasn't anybody's fault, but the policy itself was flawed. I mean, first of all, that is the bigger part. What that policy was, as Steve said, was flawed from the beginning. It wasn't the way it should have been done, especially in the most vulnerable. That's where it started, in those nursing homes, and that's where the spread, whether through those individuals, the staffing, however, it was beginning there, and that's where it should have been clamped down on. So the report, while impressive that the Attorney General didn't walk the other walk and took the straight approach to this, is welcoming. And but again, I say it's what all of us knew.
It was clear when you saw the death toll in the senior population that this was the reality. And to have the governor and then Zucker try to exonerate his own department in this, I mean, it's really embarrassing. And my hope is that we get from this a little more courage out of the Democratic legislature leadership to strip these emergency powers, because we have a dishonest governor that has now been, basically outed by a member of his own party is committing a cover-up. Ryan, what's your take here as we get started?
Yeah, to what Tony just touched on, unfortunately, every day when we get the data, we look at who we've lost in our community. When we even have hospital deaths, we know if they came from congregate care facilities, assisted living facilities, senior nursing homes. And it's kind of, this isn't news, right? So we've known this. It brings back really me to where we were in the early days of the pandemic, when in central New York, we had really a 2-week head start to plan and prepare. And I'm talking to Steve Newhouse in Orange County. What are you saying? His nursing home's caught on fire in the county, and out of that county, we actually transferred ownership of our nursing home in 2012. So we didn't have a county-run nursing home. So these were all privately owned and operated nursing homes. We reached out to many of them, and they were very clear, many of these operators, that they don't report to us. And so when we wanted to do testing and test, they were pretty bullish that they're going to work with the state on that. And it was something that it's the one thing that when I look back at everything, and I in my briefings, I was loud, that I say, what could I have done differently? I could have screamed louder, because I was listening to my friends in other parts of the state. And, whether it was New York State DOH who needed to act faster, the second floor, the owners themselves, we should have been doing things differently there. And we need to learn from that now moving forward, Chairman, because we are now vaccinating, and we can crush this pandemic quicker if we do things a little bit differently moving forward. We can't, we need to get vaccinating our seniors very quickly.
Well, that's great. And that's what I've invited you all to join us in this discussion today, because the vaccine's at the top of everyone's mind in continuing this discussion on COVID, because it is the number one issue facing our state right now. But we're going to focus on, the vaccine rollout. And you've all read the headlines every day about the chaos and the confusion and the frustration that New Yorkers are facing as a result of Andrew Cuomo's poorly planned and poorly executed distribution program. But I really wanted to invite these great executives who are on the front lines at the local level, and they're dealing with this on a daily basis. And we're going to get into all the things that were and continue to go wrong. But I also wanted to get into what Republican leaders that are elected in working every day, what they would have done to make this process more efficient and more effective, and how they're handling things in their own particular areas. This is of critical importance that we talk about this, because there's the confusion that's going on, especially in our senior populations, it's off the charts. And, Andrew Cuomo has total control, has insisted on total control, has insisted that no one else is at the table other than mysterious experts that he does not identify. But with total control should come total responsibility, as far as I'm concerned. And the proverbial bill is coming due for this lack of leadership that we've had out of the governor, and lack of management, and lack of real concern for anyone other than himself or his own publicity. Because the truth is, while this governor should have been preparing a detailed operational plan to get this vaccine stabbed into the arms of New Yorkers that want it, he was busy doing everything but it. He was promoting a book, which belongs at the dollar store at this point. He was busy promoting his Emmy Award for all of his fictional portrayals of a leader. He was busy playing politics to undermine New Yorkers' trust in the vaccine. He was busy giving 4 separate State of the State speeches that no one watched to soak up as much television airtime as he could. And I've said it before, and he continues to prove me right. His handling of COVID is the most glaring example of this governor in a nutshell. He cares only about the perception that he creates and the power that he holds. But just underneath the surface, we have a total nightmare. Everything he gets his hands into is rife with corruption, incompetence, and mismanagement. And there's an old saying, how do you do anything is how you do everything. Cuomo's worst personality traits infect his ability to lead this state in the way New Yorkers deserve. And they've cost us lives with his deadly nursing home policy that we've talked about. They've destroyed businesses and killed millions of jobs. And they've certainly affected the way he's handled this vaccine distribution. New York lags behind 26 other states in getting the vaccine administered. The vaccine is sitting on a shelf, and providers were forced to throw precious doses away because they couldn't find recipients that fit into the governor's original narrow, restrictive, complicated guideline. People were given appointments that had to be taken away afterwards. And then, to add insult to injury, he said he wanted to give it to drug addicts and sex offenders that are in prison before our elderly parents and grandparents. He will continue to pass the buck and blame everyone. It appears even his good buddy Joe Biden is not exempt from this. But today we're going to shine a light on the real impact of what's happening on the ground. So with that, I would like to dive into some questions with you gentlemen as we kick things off. For a lot of people around the state who may not realize it, what is a county's traditional role in the administration of public vaccinations? And Ryan, why don't you start us off with that response?
Yeah, so this is kind of, if you think about every level of government, and certainly we've all been critiqued at the federal, state, and local level I would make an argument that the one level of government that was ready for its role was county governments with the vaccine distribution. This is what we've been trained to do. We receive federal and state dollars every year to go through this process so that we put together vaccination plans, strategies. Our health departments work on this. So when we were throughout this whole process, this whole year, which has been like no other, you're dealing with regulations, you're dealing with restarts, you're dealing with the response on a day-to-day basis, things that we've never done before. But the one thing we have done was vaccinations. And so we were ready. And I think that's kind of part of the frustration. This will be, and is, even though we're kind of tied with one hand behind our back right now, this is the most important thing any of us will ever do. It's the most important thing that our health departments will do. And our health department workers, by the way, deserve to do this. They deserve this experience because they've been the ones doing all the work and dealing with all the families related to these COVID cases. So this is something we're ready for. I think we're being underutilized. And this isn't about picking a fight with anybody at this point. This is about crushing this pandemic and putting, I use a sports analogy. I know, Chairman, that you're a Bills fan. This is the first quarter of this. You can fall behind in the first quarter and still blow your team out, but you got to keep your star players in the game. And by not underutilizing counties, you're keeping your star players on the bench.
Great. Welcome, Marcus Molinaro, Dutchess County Executive. And so, what is your experience and role in Dutchess County as vaccine rollouts have been held there in the past?
Ryan said it well, and I've stolen and reused his analogy. Chairman, thanks for getting us all together. The truth of the matter is county governments are the level of government responsible for responding to a public health crisis. This isn't some question. And it seems to have come to some surprise to this governor. 1,900 public health departments administered by county governments across America. And when it came to vaccine distribution, we've been planning for it. As Ryan said, I came into office in 2012. Tony is a little bit older than I am, just a little. He's been in office a little bit longer than I have. But I came into office in 2012, and we were training on vaccine distribution. After 9/11, counties were asked to take on a more inclusive role to regionalize emergency response. After H1N1, we were asked to develop pandemic and vaccine responses. And so we had the plan. The plans were on the shelf. Plans were trained on. We have volunteers, Medical Reserve Corps, public health employees. Plans are ready to go. In fact, ironically, the governor's office asked us to update those plans at the end of October, expecting that we'd put them into use. And then they went in an entirely different direction and shelved it. So Ryan's analogy is perfect. Your star players, and it's not us. These are trained public health officials who have been engaged in preparing for this for generations, are on the sidelines, and it's a shame. It's just a shame. So I think you said, you were kind of referencing, what they put in place. They didn't have to write a new rule book here. We knew exactly how to get vaccines on the ground, distributed in particular to communities that don't have direct access to healthcare, and we can put shots in the arms. And that's what we ought to be doing. And we're hopeful that they get their act together, although after today's news, I'm doubtful that we're going to see much progress.
Steve?
Listen, if Andrew Cuomo could inject vaccine as much as he can inject chaos, this state would be a lot better off. What Mark and Ryan said are right. And as Ryan was saying that, I'm thinking the same thing. This is like putting a football team out there without your quarterback, nobody to really call the plays. But what you did do, keep in mind what happened here. What my colleagues have said is spot on. The counties are the entity that are best and really most prepared to do mass vaccination events. But at the very last second, Andrew Cuomo, as he always does, injects chaos into a process, changes direction at the very last second. If you think back to our phased opening, he was doing the same thing where he kept moving the goalpost on us. So at the very last second, he says, no, counties aren't going to do it. Hospitals are going to do it. Hospitals are not prepared to do mass vaccines. They immediately called us anyway and said, you guys know how to do this because we don't. Then they changed direction, said now pharmacies are going to do it. And then we went to the mass vaccination site where we just commandeered our vaccines anyway. And all that's really happening here is we have senior citizens who have been scared to death by this governor for 10 months, and they have every right to be concerned because they're the most vulnerable. They are now being forced, as if it's the Hunger Games, to scavenge around the state for vaccines. And we have people, we had a 104-year-old from Massapequa come to our Hudson Valley Community College site last Saturday. That's absolute insanity. And it's also cruel and dangerous to be doing to these senior citizens because, you know, God bless them. A lot of these, they're tough people, but they want this shot. And a lot of these folks are saying, I'm okay, I can do it. And they'll get in the car and drive 3 or 4 hours each way to get a shot. It makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense for somebody in Tony's area to be driving to Hudson Valley Community College. It doesn't make any sense for my folks to be driving out there. But that's what this governor's done. It has inflicted chaos. And until this state recognizes that it is the counties that are going to get this job done, we're going to continue to see this chaos and this completely changing direction almost on a daily, if not weekly basis.
Tony, what's your take on that question?
Well, as Mark likes to say, I'm the longest serving county executive right now in the state, although he's been in elected office a lot longer, but we won't talk about that or whatever. But yeah, my colleagues are all spot on, and I'll take it one step further on this. I mean, you know, to this. So, you know, we often talk, Chairman, about the role of county governments. We are the arm of the state. The state doesn't provide direct services. We do. And we always do. We always talk about that because that's what county governments are. And I'll take a step further with the local health departments. It's their job. It's their role under the law on vaccinations. It's clear. It always has been. We did it, and Mark mentioned, you know, H1N1. We meant SARS, Ebola. You go down the list of what's been done over the last, I've been in 14 years, over the last 14 years of different vaccines. We did vaccines during this pandemic for Hep A. I mean, we are the ones that do that. We are set up for it. We practice drills and years that we fortunately don't have different pandemics or epidemics, depending on what the case might be. So, you know, to Ryan's point about, yeah, you've left your team. I wouldn't even say you left your first stringers on. You left your team on the sidelines. And as Steve pointed out, all of a sudden the state got in the vaccination process, which when they announced this, which we were all upset about, and rightly so, to the hospital's point, they had enough on their plate. They couldn't do it. They weren't set up for this. Let them do their employees. No quarrel with that. Let us do the community. Let us do the community we do best because we know how to do it. I have 40 setups of pods potential in my county. I only have 2 running today because I only have 1 day's worth of vaccinations. Because when the state opened up their pod 2 weeks ago now, that was the end of that dried up my vaccination numbers. I started out with 3,000 1 week, 1,300 the second week, and the last 2 weeks have done 500 a week. That's 1 day. I can get that out in 1 day in just the 2 pods I have. But so in those 2 pods, I should be doing 3,500 minimum a week. I can do many more than that. Plus I can do all the other pods that I have established that are, as Mark said, we have volunteers, we have staff, we've hired people. They've now begun the competition with us by hiring people in our respective counties to do it at their site. I'm all for more pods, but all they did was took it away from us and made it look like these mass sites were good. While he was saying, well, there are no more vaccines. They're booked out till April in these pods. I can only book 1 day at a time, and it's one day a week now. So the entire process, yeah, when you want to talk about mismanagement, we can go through all of this. But the point is, we should be doing this. We should have been doing it from the beginning. And I can honestly tell you, all of those, everybody would be at 100% in terms of distribution if it was left in the county's hands.
So you lead to some other questions I have. So you have the state coming in to basically compete with the county distribution program. You've got another facet of this, which is through drugstores, pharmacies, supermarket chains. has the governor done conference calls and coordinated with county executives similar to what the president did with governors to discuss the plans and get the two-way feedback that, they need? And, when did you hear from the governor's team about his vaccination plan?
I'm sure Steve McLaughlin can say it more colorfully than I can, but the short answer, Mr. Chairman, is no. Listen, no, there's been no coordination, and there's been no communication. Governor DeWine in Ohio took the action very early on in the pandemic to convene all of their county leaders, all of the large city mayors, and they met weekly. And that's what you would do. That's what we do. Every one of us been meeting with supervisors, mayors, school superintendents every week, updated information. You would have a coordinated structure. Now, the funny thing is, and it's not funny because it's led to lost lives. And believe me, I say this not for my personal benefit. I know the toll of this disease. I understand it. I don't say this just to be flippant, but you already had the plan. Everything was already there. You just execute it. And where I come from, we plan our work, we work our plan. This governor sadly likes to micromanage it, and it's sort of a maniacal kind of a thing. And it's unfortunate because what it's led to is the inability to effectively respond. It's led to shuttering of businesses, and it's led to the loss of lives. And I'm just going to say this. I know it's a different topic, but it's obviously news today. The denial of what we've known for months has led not only to lost lives, but excruciating heartbreak. The decision to leave those with severe cases of COVID in nursing homes who weren't prepared to manage it, or forced hospitals to force people back so that they couldn't do their job, or force individuals to stay and be counted as hospital deaths, led to holding communities closed, businesses shuttered, and lost lives. And it is beyond incompetence. The governor said a few days ago, incompetent government kills people. Well, imagine what incompetent and deceptive government does. It's an outright betrayal to ordinary people, and it is a betrayal and an excruciating pain to individuals who now have to relive a loss of life that they had no ability to embrace and to deal with in that moment. And that is shameful. It is shameful. And so we're talking about the fact that government should be competent, ought to work. It will, it should. And if we had all worked together from the beginning, if he had engaged us from the beginning, we would have a different response today.
Yeah, Chairman, if I can, just to go on that as well, we sit here as the four of us. Ryan is the largest county of all of us, of the four of us sitting there, and then Marcus, and then Steve and I. But you have county executives across the state, 18 of us, the chief elected officials of the counties that we represent. The lack of respect and not having a discussion with us at any time. And right now it's beyond that. It doesn't even matter anymore because it's almost a year. From March of 2020, from March 13th, when this really hit, and we declared state of emergencies before they did. We closed schools before they did. We in my county enacted a mask mandate before they did. All of these things, and never a conversation, never a gathering on a quarterly basis, on a monthly basis, weekly basis, quarterly basis, nothing. Not only the governor, never had a conversation with Dr. Zucker. The man is the health commissioner of the state of New York. He did an insulting PowerPoint presentation to us, I think to county leaders. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, I don't even remember, in which no questions were asked. Anybody in the health department could have done the PowerPoint program that he did, which if you ask me about it today, I still can't tell you what it was about. I can't even remember. That's how insignificant it was. But not even the health commissioner, not even anyone on a regular basis having calls with us. It's laughable in that regard, and it just shows that I'll deal with it. Just while things are happening all throughout the state, death rates are going up, infection rates going up, things happening that we could help to control. It wasn't about having a phone call. It was about, let us tell you what we think. We are elected by our communities in order to lead, and we continue to do that every day. But the lack of respect, I think, is the other piece here. And right now it doesn't really matter anymore. I mean, because all of us have moved and are doing things in our community to keep our people safe, and we'll continue to do that. We just need more vaccines, and we need them to get out of our way.
Ryan, do you have any different experience than Marcus and Tony?
Yeah, I think at different points, each region has had different communications, and I've had good rapport with some of the senior team there. Over time, I share the frustration, specifically with the vaccination rollout. The reality is our pod got off first. We were, I think, the first county pod in the whole state. We started helping out our hospitals who were really in a bad spot. They were very close to being at full capacity. So I'm sympathetic to the concept that not all counties are created equal with their infrastructure. But I think to Tony's point, when you have the county executives, we are executives that have a county-wide mandate via the voters. There's a level of accountability in our counties that a county with a county manager does not have with the legislature. And we are the pulse, we're the faces. I get emails all the time saying, you're our governor in Onondaga County. That's your job. Go fight for this, go fight for that. And the other thing too, that there just hasn't been, I think, an acknowledgement is that whatever decision the governor makes, the president makes, the voters don't really differentiate our decisions that well. They think we're making the same decisions. So our successes are so connected in this pandemic between the state and the local levels that they really need this next step of the process. When we get more supply, is going to make or break, in my opinion, how this goes, and whether we make our comeback by getting us back in the game. We proved very early that we were capable, nobody can say that. Our region, we get 1,000 doses this week. We'll be done in 5 hours of putting shots in arms. So there's great partners here. We got to get brought back in the game, and this isn't about picking a fight with anybody. This is about ending this pandemic so that we can have debates on policy issues that aren't related to public health again, because these are very, very serious debates we're all having.
Well, it is. We all accept the fact that the vaccine is the road to normalcy, the road to life before COVID. I see the governor erased his very flawed microcluster strategy yesterday, which I know Onondaga, my home county of Erie, we've been embroiled in. And the only thing I think it did was kill more businesses by putting excessive regulation. Actually, we came out of microclusters at a higher percentage of infection rate than we went into microclusters, if you want to see what kind of a buffoon strategy this was. Steve, I don't want to cut you off as you have observations on that earlier question.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, there was very little communication. And this is a bipartisan thing. If you're on our Zoom calls with county executives across the state, there's county executives everywhere screaming about the lack of data sharing, the lack of communication. If I recall correctly, this entire pandemic, we've had literally one Zoom call with this governor, and that was him lecturing us about how it was our job to enforce his never-ending executive actions. That was the extent of it. There was a couple of hand-picked questions, and that was it. As far as Zucker, no communication of any real sort, other than he did, like as Anthony said, he did a quick little PowerPoint, which I remember that, Tony. All it was him trying to get us. It was a PR campaign about building up vaccine confidence. This is the same administration that tore that confidence to shreds because it was coming under the Trump administration, and they couldn't have that. Then they lied to us again and said, we're not going to approve this vaccine until his so-called experts, who don't exist, by the way. There was never a review of the vaccine by Cuomo and his so-called experts. He wouldn't approve it until they did. It was total nonsense. It's always a shell game with this guy, and it's always an ever-changing field, and it's always about keeping people off balance and guessing. And as you said, Chairman, with total control comes total responsibility. He never wants the responsibility. He only wants the control and then the ability to blame others. And just off topic for half a second, That's the reason that he threw into our laps sports for kids. He said, I'll let the counties handle that. Well, that's because if anything goes wrong, he can say, well, that's not me, that's the counties. Meanwhile, he's kept a stranglehold on every single decision that anybody can make. It all has to go through the second floor. So, what my colleagues are saying is correct. It's been very, very little communication among the counties. We should be talking weekly with this governor. As a group, we should be having access to him, and we do not have that access.
I mean, the fact that emergency response isn't coordinated like it would be in, say, snow removal or, any sort of natural disaster. I mean, if he wants to control the vaccine distributions, why aren't these large mass-based National Guard run centers distributing the vaccine in communities small and large? I mean, Ryan is from a big county. You guys, the rest of you are from, kind of moderately sized counties across the state in different regions. But, the competition between the state and the county, it kind of defies logic because it confuses, especially senior citizens that are not tech savvy. I mean, I dealt with, the situation with my wife and our in-laws trying to make sure that they got, the vaccine, the first shot as soon as they could. And, it was challenging for us to try to help get them booked. I can't imagine a senior when they log onto the state website, the first appointment they see is in April and they say, oh, I guess I have to go in April. Yeah, there are sooner appointments available. A question that I think has been burning in a lot of people's minds, and I want to get each of your perspectives on, is vaccine supply and how it's being distributed. Is there a formula? Is it kind of whoever the governor feels like should get the lion's share that week? I mean, obviously a lot of our population is in the denser counties, but we need to make sure there's equality, not just in urban centers. It's the only thing you hear out of the governor's mouth, but in rural centers just as much, where, maybe technology is not at the forefront or people aren't talking about it or thinking about it. I mean, public awareness of the need to get vaccinated has got to be boosted here. And, I'm kind of eager to know if you feel that your communities have been shortchanged in this distribution. So why don't we start with Marcus on this one?
Sure. Listen, there is some math. No one knows it, and that really is part of the problem. What we've experienced, and I think is the biggest issue, and it's why counties, if we can handle the vaccinations, we'll be getting them to populations that are underserved. And underserved may be Black and brown communities in certain counties. It might be rural and farm communities in certain counties. But we know those, and we have the network, and we're able to provide the service. What we experience is what I think Ryan may have mentioned, and Tony kind of alluded to. We were at a point where there was sort of, some math that we understood, distribution based on population, with some consideration for density and number of cases, and we were getting a number. Ryan was doing thousands of vaccines a week. We were Dutchess County able at that time. We were doing about 1,500 or 1,600. For about 2 weeks. And then the state opened those massive super sites. And Chairman, that's what you experienced, right? Somebody sees an appointment in April, they say, hey, well, I'm just going to wait and go to April. I guess when I'm supposed to wait. That's because what the state, or maybe Tony mentioned it, but that's what the state did. They cannibalized our numbers. They took the doses that the federal government was distributing to states with the expectation it would get to communities, and they just siphoned it. And they took tens of thousands of doses, and they put them in vaccine distribution points in Syracuse, right down the road from the one that the Onondaga County was running, right next to the one that Oneida County was working on. And in my case, in Dutchess County's case, our residents will have to drive to SUNY Albany or down to Westchester to get access. And what's happened is that the ordinary citizen, in particular, those who are less mobile, they're frozen out. They're not able to get access at all because they can't get an appointment. It's booked up till April in any of these state sites. And then there's no product locally. There's no vaccine locally. So just in our case, we're doing 600 shots a week. I mean, I first of all, that books up in 2 minutes. And second, we'll accomplish that in 3 hours. I was a little late because I actually came from our pod. They had just opened. They'll be done in 3 hours with the number that they have to. I just want to reinforce though, for a lot of us, the task of getting the vaccines out, it is light at the end of the tunnel. It's opening up the economy. It's all the things that we know. But it's also a fulfillment of the duty and the responsibility we have. You're looking at people who take very seriously their job. We're responsible to our voters. We're responsible to our employees. And we're responsible as people who lost lives. This was our opportunity. This is our opportunity to give meaning to all of it. And the state has just thrown that entire operation out the window for no reason at all. And that's the experience we've seen.
Has anyone else got a point of view on volume?
Yeah, well, I think volume is important, but I also think access is another important piece here. When you look at the mass sites that they set up, and Ryan and I talked about this, we talk, pretty much, every day and whatever, and Marcus as well. And one of the things we set up was the drive-through site, which is ideal for senior citizens. It's perfect. They drive in, they stay in their car. They don't have to get out. They can come into a building, which is heated, covered, in the weather we've been experiencing. It's 11 degrees here right now. And that site was working so well for us. That was one of two sites that we had. It got shut down because of the mass site, which was located at SUNY Poly, which is out of the neighborhoods, out of the city, out of the range of typical of good access to the community itself, and making seniors walk what amounts to blocks to go into a facility. Anybody that's been in a field house in a college knows that field houses are put in a certain location on those campuses for mass gathering accesses for sporting events, not for vaccines, of which seniors are your most vulnerable and your most, the dangerous population to deal with in those regards. They shut ours down. So it became about access to, and it also became about a system that they created. It wasn't created by us. And then they turned around, as Steve said, it started out with hospitals were going to do it. And then pharmacies were going to do it. And then we were going to do it. And then now it's, you should only be doing a certain population. I made it very clear, and I know Ryan is, and I know Steve is, and I know Mark is. I'm not turning away the most vulnerable in my community. I'm not turning away over 65. I'm not turning away the congregate sites that need the people with disabilities, are in need of these vaccines. So it's not only about the numbers, which they took away from us to open up theirs, which incidentally they used as the press release of opening it up. We opened sites, no fanfare. We just opened them, got the vaccines out the door. All of theirs had to be headlined by a state official to cut a ribbon on the site so that it was known that it was being done by his administration. That's not the way you do vaccines. You get them in people's arms, you get them out the door as quick as possible. So it was about access, and it was clearly about the numbers that they took away from us. And the numbers are proof. Look at what we started with. Marcus said it, Ryan said it, Steve said it. We started with 3,000. I have 500, one day's worth today. That's the story.
Yeah, and if I could just add one thing there, Chairman, too. A lot of what you see right now from the governor is some virtue signaling where he says, we're going to set it up at these churches because these folks are underserved. Well, there's a lot of folks in the hills of Rensselaer County that are rural that are underserved, but none of that would be happening if the counties were able to do what we know how to do. We would go right into those communities, whether it's the city of Troy or Rensselaer or up into the hills of Rensselaer County, and we would get it done. We're prevented from doing that. We're hamstrung right now by this administration. And that's the problem. As he rolls around to church, trying to make it look like we would be slighting all those folks. None of us on either side of the aisle would do any bit of that, because we are here to serve. As Marcus said, that's our role as county government, is to serve our folks.
Yeah, I found it remarkable yesterday in Buffalo, or perhaps it was the day before, Mark Molinar's lackey for Cuomo had to cancel about 7 of the county's, appointment days worth of vaccine distribution. Yet Kathy Hochul cut a ribbon on a pop-up vaccine site at a church. And I'm not saying people don't deserve this, but let's just get it out for everybody. Let everybody work together. I mean, this is just common sense. And it's what this fight's all about, is bringing common sense back to government for the people of the state of New York. You guys are practicing common sense. Everything you speak today is common sense. You want to efficiently distribute the vaccine to your taxpayers and the people that need it the most first. It only makes sense. And we have to reopen the economy. We need the vaccine to do it. Ryan, any parting thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I would just say I think the mass vaccination sites play a role in this process. They just got activated too quick. You take advantage of your existing infrastructure at the county level when the vaccine supply is so strong that your first pod and your second pod you set up are no longer available. For us, the fairgrounds is a great site. It really is. And we actually help staff it with nurses. But when that opened up, nobody told me that 2 weeks later, they're going to cut my on-center site, which I already pay these people to work every day, from 3,600 doses, plus redirected doses from the hospitals to 1,000 doses, right? So you can't cannibalize existing infrastructure. You need to maximize that. Then you build off. When each county can no longer do what they can do, that's when you need your other partners to step in, whether it's your pharmacies, primary care doctors at some point will be the best people to do your immune compromised individuals because they know that who has diabetes, they know who has heart disease. But right now in my county, I can do 18,000 shots a week at the on center. Think about that. I got 1,000, right? And the other part about this, the big distribution sites right now, when you ask about equity within region, I think the state is doing by population, allotting by region the amount of shots. What we don't know, and again, you asked the question, many others do, when people can travel from any part of the state to those sites, yet those sites are supposed to be part of our regional distribution. We don't know if our region is doing better. My county might be doing much, much better than Tony's county because my people might be traveling to other parts of the state. I just don't have that information. And the other one point, just on equity, we participated with the state at a pop-up site in churches. We want to do them in the rural communities. We just don't have the supply to do that. We'll participate with anybody to get shots in arms. But county governments, think about this. We know who our vulnerable seniors are because we have the adult and aging departments. We know who our vulnerable poor people are because they're on our social services. These are our clients. So we can get to everybody. We just need the supply, and we will get to everybody. My job's not done until 467,000 people are offered a vaccine.
That's right. And to clarify, I don't believe it's the Republican Party's position that you must be vaccinated. It is a personal choice. I know a lot of people write in, we get a lot of emails about that, and there's people that have very strong opinions about vaccination. And if that's your personal belief, by all means, that is your right. I don't believe in any kind of forced, vaccination, for this, especially, given the circumstances. But we needed to reopen the economy, and there's plenty of us that want to see this move ahead, and there's plenty of people that want to receive the vaccine. We have one of our guests to ask a question. Elizabeth Schultz, welcome.
Thank you. Hi. First of all, thank you so much for your town hall meetings. I really appreciate them. I've learned so much, and I like to pass on the information to my friends who will listen. It seems to me that the governor has been taking medicine out of the hands of doctors, and I can talk to you about that another time. But regarding the vaccination rollout, two aspects that are very upsetting to me. One, as Ryan McMahon just mentioned, doctors obviously know best who in their patients are most vulnerable, are immunocompromised, are most vulnerable to the virus, and who are most in need of getting the vaccine. And as far as I know, primary care doctors have not been contacted to give these names to the proper people. Also, there are many elderly, I lived in New York City, and those who are left in the city are mainly, there are many in my building, in my neighborhood, who are very elderly, and they're afraid to go out, or in some cases they can't go out, they're handicapped. The city is very dense. why isn't there a van with refrigeration that can distribute? In my neighborhood, they would be able to give the vaccine to people in their apartments. They could do a number of people without much, moving of the van. Another issue is I know of someone, a doctor, who went to a facility to get his vaccine, and he brought his wife, who was in her 50s and not immunocompromised, who purposely went towards the end of the day hoping that he could get her vaccinated with a leftover. And he was told that there was $100,000 fine to administer the vaccination to someone who wasn't eligible, and he was going to have to throw the leftovers out. Why is there no standby the way they have at airports, if that's the case, that there are, if that is the case? So those are my issues.
That's excellent issues. I mean, I guess let's just synthesize that a little bit. Thank you, Elizabeth, for being with us. Is there ability with the technology and with the requirements of the vaccine to have refrigeration to transport this into neighborhoods? I guess pop-up sites would be an example of that. But then, what do you do with standbys? I had a friend of mine yesterday who was a veteran. I got a call from the VA. He's only about my age, but they said, we need a veteran that's willing to get vaccinated because this stuff's going bad. And we had some bad weather, so some elderly folks canceled their appointments. So how is that all handled?
Sure, so, Chairman. What we do is we do have a standby list. The state's given out some guidance that public-facing public employees can be on your list. We have standby lists of seniors and others who qualify. So no shot will go to waste in my county. If we'll pick somebody off the street if we have to and put it in their arms. But in addition to that, part of the challenge with all of this is the pop-up locations in our plans. All of us, we all have this in our plans. There's just not enough supply. So when you can't even make, and the demand is so high. Again, I have 1,000 doses this week. I have 70,000 people at minimum that are eligible for it. So when the demand is so high, you don't break down your existing infrastructure. Homebound seniors is a huge issue, right? That as soon as we get more supply, we can execute our strategies to get there, if we're allowed to. So there's all these things that, with all these questions, your county governments have figured out solutions to it. We just don't have the supply to go do it and execute, and hopefully that will change.
And I would say, Chairman, we do the same thing. We have a hot list at the end of the day where we might have 5 or 10 shots, and we call that standby list. The problem is you then have people on social media saying, I suggest everybody show up at 4:30 just in case there's leftovers. We had 75 people waiting today who did not have appointments. We sent them all home. Because without an appointment, you cannot get a shot because it just messes us up later in the week for those that do have appointments. So we're too early in the process, Elizabeth, for what you're suggesting, which is a triage type action. We're way too early in that process. We're kind of at the top of the funnel trying to get as many shots as quickly as we can. And that's why our pods work right now, but we all have plans to get out there. And it's actually worse than what you suggested when you said it's a $100,000 fine. It would have been a $1 million fine. That has since been changed as we hit back at the state. Originally, it was the hospitals go too slow, it's 100,000. Put it in the wrong arm, it's $1 million. And that's what led to a county around us throwing away 30 shots at the end of the day because they didn't want to risk $1 million fine. Who would? And I think it was $1 million per incident. So not that they would have ever followed through with that, but the threat was out there that it was $1 million. So we've since pushed back pretty strongly on that. And we are not going to waste a shot. None of us will. We're actually over 100% because sometimes the vials are a little over full and we squeeze out some more doses, as does everybody. So we're getting every one of them out the door.
Great. Any other thoughts as we wrap that question?
No, just one, Chairman, Elizabeth raised a good point. I think one of the other things, and actually Ryan and everybody's alluded to it, when we talk about the senior population, isn't that where we're, aside from that 1A, and 1B thing with our first responders and obviously our healthcare workers, shouldn't that be the a big part of it? And you alluded to it yourself, Chairman, about your family and then the elderly. And the other thing that we do, and because that is what county governments do, because we are the closest to the people and hands-on, there is a large population of elderly that don't have access to the internet to go on and do that, or have anybody to do it for them. We do that for them in our offices every day, whatever comes up. And no one's thinking about that population. Let me rephrase that. We are the only ones thinking about that. County governments are the only ones. County executives are the ones that have been thinking about that. Not thinking about it. It comes automatic to us. And when we mention that, it's just, well, we'll book them out till April. It's not the way we should be doing it. That's the other aspect of counties in dealing with this pandemic. There is a large population out there that can't access this convoluted system that they've put in place to get a vaccine.
All right, we have Michael Smith joining us. Michael?
Chairman, I wanted to thank you and the team for having this call this afternoon. I'm speaking with you from New York City. I'm a patient and patient advocate. In 1987, I was assaulted at a New York State high school, and that assault caused the permanent and spastic paralysis of my digestive tract. I'm now a patient advocate in a community of about 5 million Americans who suffer from a variety of conditions of digestive tract paralysis, including paralysis of the stomach and paralysis of the entire digestive tract. Also serve as a volunteer advisor to MOLI, a foundation that helps assist millions of Americans who subsist on artificial nutrition. A component of Elizabeth's question, we had reached out to the governor's office and a few others here in New York City after he issued sort of the one-day guidance that they would be talking to CDC about how scheduling would take place for vaccinations for immunocompromised individuals. We recognize the need for prioritization of our seniors and for some of these other communities as well at this point, but we're dealing with a group of 16 to 64-year-olds who are some of the most immunocompromised individuals in the United States, who are on immune suppressed medications on a daily basis, who face the risk of intestinal transplant. Sadly, the only intestinal transplant surgeon in New York State at Columbia nearly passed away from COVID earlier this year at this point. And we're lacking in the understanding, bad news is better than no news. What happened to the guidance relating to the CDC instructions? We're not looking to cut anybody in line, but at least give us guidance in terms of how we should be handling the next 3 to 6 months of our lives, both for the protection of ourselves and our families.
Chairman, I could jump in on this a little bit because we all push on this. And again, I'll give you what today is bad news, Michael, but hopefully a little bit of hope too, is you will be the next that are allowed immunocompromised individuals. The challenge is right now, I'll give you an example. We had 1,000 appointments for a clinic tomorrow. Someone just put a note in front of me that our registration system crashed. And it crashed because we had 35,000 people at once on there trying to get this link. If you opened up immunocompromised right now, considering that the only new appointments, this is the key to the system that's happened, the only new appointments in almost every county in the whole state are what the counties get or the city of New York gets from the state, because the state max vaccination sites, those appointments are already scheduled months in advance. So if you open it up right now, what it would create is more demand on a system that can't handle the existing demand. And so next week, the state will start getting 300,000 doses a week, which means we'll probably get some more, 16% then the next 3 weeks. That still won't solve it. But I think the key to open this up more is Johnson & Johnson getting approved. They already have manufactured a certain number of doses. Those will become new doses into the system. But you are next. There's no question about it. But the problem is we cannot even handle what's going on right now. And that's why I think the state is kind of paused related to opening it up more.
We have a question from someone that wrote in from John in St. Lawrence County. Just the numbers are confusing out there with whether you look at the state or counties. There's differing numbers put out there. the metrics are very hard to understand. If each of you could just tell us what percentage of the population of your counties that you believe today are vaccinated, so we can understand the progress.
Hey, Ryan, can we tell them that?
It would be a guess.
It would be a total guess.
Yeah, I think my county's at 10%. Again, the one thing is I had somebody email me today telling me they're going to get a vaccine in Potsdam. And so I believe, I know how many I've done in my pod. I have that data. We've done about 15,000 first shots in my pod. I have an idea with the hospitals, right? How many employees did you do? And then you estimate at the mass vaccination site how many shots they're giving a week and how many are there. So in my county, we might be at 10% for first shots.
Yeah, we're probably a little bit lower than that, but I mean, maybe 7 or 8%. But to the point that we've all been making, we're not shared. The data isn't shared with us, and even the data, with all due respect, I shouldn't say with all due, the data that's shared at the state level is either outright dishonest or it's just not accurate, and we've seen that. So we've been asking from day one, not just the planning, but what we would like to be able to see is by zip code and by basic demographic, the numbers, because we've all made this point. We can tell you the numbers we've issued, number of vaccines we issued. I know the basic breakdown in the several thousand that I've done in the county pod, but we don't have the ability to look at a map and understand where are there underserved populations, where are individuals not getting vaccine, and then you'd focus your resources there. And in an ordinary emergency, you'd move the fire truck and you'd get the firemen to where the fire is. Instead, there's this sort of, we're all flying a little bit blind here. I don't want to rehash the last question, but I do want to say, there are other states that did do this. They opened up to immunocompromised, those who have received transplants, ahead of opening the floodgates to other essential workers. And they did that by giving localities a little bit more latitude to go to those locations. So we might not be able to do thousands upon thousands of individuals with compromised immunity, but we could begin the process with just 50 or 60 doses a week, where we could at least get to locations with physicians or those with developmental disabilities. We can get to some of those congregate settings where we could at least start the process of shedding some light in those populations. But we're not necessarily allowed to do that right now, and it's because of the regulation the state's imposed and the lack of supply.
Steve?
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think a big mistake, and a lot of us were vocal about this, is opening up 1B and 1C 24 hours later was a horrible mistake. There's not enough supply. And when you open it up to 65 and up, that threw the doors open to about 7 million New Yorkers who are clamoring for a vaccine that we do not have. Better course of action would have been our essential workers, our most vulnerable, and our 75 and up. But don't throw the door open to 65 and up until you have more supply. And what Cuomo did is what he always does. He blamed someone else and said, well, the CDC said to do it. But not every governor did that. A lot of governors pushed back and said, I'm not doing that until I get more supply. So he certainly was comfortable pushing back on the CDC when he felt like it. But when it's politically convenient for him, he says, well, CDC told me to do it. You didn't have to follow that order. It was not a good policy, not a good plan. Funny that as I was screaming about it, and many of us on this call were screaming about it, 3 weeks later, he says, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have opened it up to 65 and up. I don't know why it took him 3 weeks to come to the realization that we all knew immediately as soon as they did that.
Tony, you want to back clean up here?
Yeah, just to go back to the point of saying that, I wish I knew how many of my residents got it, because, to Steve's earlier point about people jumping from not county to county, but region to region, from downstate to upstate down, all over. So whether Oneida County distributed, I don't know, 15, 20,000 doses, I don't know how many of those are county residents or in my county. I don't know how many of my county went to Rensselaer or even Dutchess or even Onondaga, and Onondaga and we're next door to each other. I mean, people are jumping all the time. It's hard to get that number. So, one of the things the governor said, we pointed to the Mohawk Valley region, which is where we are designated as in Oneida County, and said that's the lowest region. They got to get, we got to get better in the percentage. I don't control that. He does, and so he's pointing to me to fix something that I don't have the vaccines effective. 40, I got 4,800 out. I'll get the other 500 today. 5,300 we've been given. 5,300 we've gotten out the door. That's all I can account for. I don't know what everybody else has got.
The follow-up question is, is there any threat to people getting the second shot, or is that accounted for in these numbers?
Yeah, the second shots are there. So what happens is right now, the state basically lets the federal government know who should, how many doses they should send to our health departments. They then send the second doses as well. So that's okay. So people should, if you have an appointment or you got an appointment, when you hear about supply, everybody's talking about first doses, not second doses.
And the second dose is different than the first dose?
No, it's the same. You got to have the same manufacturer. So if you got Moderna, which most of the vaccine at our pods is Moderna, then you got to go back to the same site and you got to get the same shot of Moderna. Everybody probably has their own different registration process on second doses. In my county, we actually email you a week before to give you your date and a registration link. We don't do it on site. Some people do it on site.
We don't let you leave until you get that second appointment schedule.
Thanks. Well, gentlemen, we are well into overtime here. I am eternally grateful for you carving an hour out of your very busy days. These have been extraordinarily difficult times for these county executives this last year, as we've dealt with COVID-19 and all of the wrinkles of this and the pandemic response. The county levels have delivered, and we are very grateful for your service. New York State would be in much better shape if any of you were governor right now. That I'm comfortable with. And Marcus, I know he considers himself governor of upstate New York, but maybe you'll get emergency powers soon. But I want to thank you very much. We are at the NYGOP are going to continue the fight to bring facts. We do this because we don't necessarily get the fairest shot in the media to get our point across, as many of our media entities have their own cross to bear. So we use this forum. We put it out through all of our channels, Facebook Live, Zoom. You can come live. You can watch it on YouTube. It's all archived in ready for you so that you can hear directly from leaders that are on the front lines of these situations in the decision-making chair and hear the facts directly without the governor's filter. And we look forward to continuing that fight. We will be pounding away as Leader Orton, the Senate Republicans, again this week have put the question to the Senate to repeal the governor's emergency powers, to once again restore New York to the constitutional government that New York taxpayers deserve. This is not a monarchy. There should not be a king making the decisions. It's elected leaders like the people you heard from today that should be making the decisions on what's best for their jurisdictions. So we'll continue this fight. I thank you all for taking the time to be with us. Support the NYGOP and all of our great elected officials, and we'll be back at this again next week at this time. Thanks so much, fellas.